Let's talk about freedom in jazz. Hey, I'm Ron Rodos from KeyboardImprov.com, and thank you for joining me for my 129th episode of Journey Through the Real Book, and I hope it's yours too. This is Freedom Jazz Dance by Eddie Harris, great saxophone player. Mid to late 60s, they're experimenting with different sounds. Classic rock was really big, and there was more of a connection between jazz in the 60s, Miles Davis, Eddie Harris, modal jazz, and classic rock than we may think. If you took a Jimi Hendrix, the sound, the vibe of him playing, and you put it on tenor saxophone, it might sound close to John Coltrane in some ways. Even his version of Star Spangled Banner, playing out of tempo, similar to what Coltrane was doing at that time. And indeed, Hendrix was scheduled to make a recording with the Gil Evans Big Band. Gil Evans being Miles Davis' best friend and collaborator over the years. Hendrix was scheduled to make a recording with him when he passed away, untimely death. So big connection there. So you hear like guitarists playing with a wah-wah pedal, Frank Zappa and all those great rock guitarists. Well, Eddie Harris was doing it with a saxophone. And Miles did it with his trumpet later in the 70s. Big cross-pollination there. And straight eighth notes. At this time, this was on Miles' great album, Miles Smiles, which some people consider the culmination of the studio recordings of that second great quintet with Wayne Shorter in it in the 60s. What is it freedom from? Well, it's freedom from a restrictive, in their sense, chord sequence. They don't have to navigate these chord changes. There's just one chord. Matter of fact, it says even no chord. And they're playing in fourths. You can go in and out of the key. Fourths don't delineate the chord or the key as, precisely as thirds do. You can play something and then go up a half step. But what do you do with this, quote, freedom? Sometimes I'll have a little debate with a friend of mine who's a really great avant-garde jazz drummer, and I'm like, if you're playing free, does that really mean you can play anything you want? Is that free? Like, can I just start playing the Beatles' Let It Be in the middle of a free jazz thing, or even many triads? And he's like, well, no, I don't think the audience would always like that, and whatever. So I don't know what freedom really means. But basically, on a tune like this, it means that we can pretty much play whatever we want. And without getting overwhelmed, you find what you like. Do you like playing funk kind of grooves on B flat 7th? You can do that. If you like playing in fourths. You can do that. If you like abandoning the chords and just playing whatever you like. If you like playing in-tempo out, you can do whatever you want. Don't think you have to do everything. Okay, having said that, let's see where this takes me. I'm going to start just by getting into the groove, a groove a little bit without starting with the melody, and then I'll pick it up from there. I think I need a minute after I play that, just to sort of, well, this is where if you're playing for a live audience, they're applauding, you have a minute to sort of breathe. It's amazing to just sort of go there and let loose and follow your, the musical thread and your musical impulses without necessarily having to come back to anything. Miles, at this time, one of the famous things that his quintet was doing was playing what they called time, no changes. They would play in tempo without chord changes and just sort of, behind Herbie Hancock, the bass player, Ron Carter, just sort of following their own harmonic path and listening to each other, but not even staying with the one chord indicated here. They would also take this kind of playing into other things. If you listen to Live at the Plug Nickel and they're playing Oleo, I Got Rhythm, they're not necessarily staying with I Got Rhythm changes. They're they're loosely B flat, just like this. So this is a valuable type of tune to practice. Couple things, I love 20th century classical music, and you hear things like the third and the sharp 9 on a B flat chord. You hear this kind of, and I think that's influenced Herbie Hancock too, like Webern and serialism. And so you can bring it into a tune like this. Over that funk kind of beat. You can really see, different things in each hand. Everything that you can do as a pianist can come into play in a tune like this. So I urge you to explore. Don't let anybody tell you not to go in a certain direction that you enjoy. Take in what they say. If they say, maybe you can try this, but don't do it just because it's the way they do it, or don't let it restrict you. Too many times people say, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do that, you can't do that. Luckily, Herbie Hancock, for instance, has always ignored that advice and pursues things. And then you see if it's working or not over time. But give it a try, and if it gets you excited about music and about practicing and collaborating with others, go for it. Enough said. Thanks for being here, and hope you join me. We're going to go way back to old-time bluesiness in G Baby, Ain't It Good to You. Meanwhile, check out Freedom Jazz Dance. Take care.